Hello, welcome back to the Rise and Thrive podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful start to your year to 2025. Can't believe we are already into February, which is crazy. And I've been on a little hiatus. I was traveling at the end of December through the Christmas holidays and into January. I got really sick at one point. So finally getting back into routine, which has been awesome to start to feel like I'm building a momentum again. And speaking of building a momentum, before we know it, summer will be here. It is around the corner. It's only 4 months away. And I am starting to get those questions of like, hey, what should I do to tone up or lose fat by summer, right? So today I am sharing with you the things I would start doing today, 6 things I would start doing today if I wanted to drop 15 to 20 pounds by the time that summer rolls around. And there's going to be a lot of information in this one. So if you want to go grab a pen and paper or maybe whip out your phone notes app, that would be great to take down some main points and takeaways so that you can refer back to those later. So diving into these 6 tips. The first and foremost, most important thing, I don't want to say the most important thing. These things are all like equally as important. So they're all going to be number one. I just changed my mind. They're all going to be number one. But the first thing I want to discuss is that you must be in a calorie deficit to lose weight, right? And this obviously has a lot of nuance to it because, you see a lot of situations where women say that they're eating lower calorie diets and they're not seeing weight loss. And that's because there's some more intricate issues going on under the hood, right? Maybe they've experienced metabolic adaptation or maybe like their hormones and other underlying, mechanical things in their body, like their thyroid function and stuff like that, are out of whack and are inhibiting their fat loss. But on a really high level blanket statement, you need to be in a deficit for weight loss to occur, right? So what this essentially means is you need to be eating less than you need to be burning per day. And if you don't currently track your food, this is where you can start to get a baseline idea of how much you're currently eating so that you know what you need to subtract from. Now, this is assuming that your baseline calories are high enough to start with to subtract from to maintain your health. If you're currently eating less than 1,800 to 2,000 calories on a day-to-day basis after you track your food for a week and you average it out, then you need to put a pause on this episode right now and you need to go to my reverse dieting episodes first. I will link those in the description of this podcast because if you don't have a high enough baseline of calories to pull from, it's going to be very, very hard to put yourself into a caloric deficit that is not going to put more of a strain on your health and be more of a negative than a positive, right? So just to give you an example, if you're currently eating 14 or 1,500 calories, theoretically that should already be a deficit from the amount that you're burning per day. And if you're not seeing weight loss at that intake, that means that you've experienced something called metabolic adaptation, which is the slowing of your metabolism. And you're not in a position to be able to be put into a further deficit without compromising your health, right? To put you into a further deficit from that, we need to put you down to 1,900 calories per day, which is just not healthy. So if you're listening to this and you're like, Sam, I don't track my food. I don't want to track my food. It just seems like so much work and such a headache. I can understand that, but I want you to think about this for 1 minute like you would finance. And if you went in to see a financial planner or an accountant and you said, hey, I really want to achieve a savings goal this year. I want to save to buy a house. I want to save to buy a car. I want to pay off my debt. And they said to you, okay, great. What is your monthly income and what does your monthly expenses look like? And you had no idea. You had no idea what was coming in or what was going out. There would be no strategy behind that savings goal, right? And this is very similar to that. A data-driven approach is always going to give you more leverage to see better results. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can't physically lose weight without tracking your food because that would be a lie. However, it is typically a slower process because, like I said, it lacks strategy. It often leads to plateaus more quickly because we end up using all of the tools at our disposal to max out your weight loss progress faster and can potentially lead to other issues with your underlying health and your hormones because oftentimes people will undereat and put themselves in an unhealthy deficit without even realizing. So overall, we have to be in a deficit, but we don't want to be in so much of a deficit that it's causing so much stress on our body that we get a pushback from our body. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about on this list of 6 things that I would do to lose 15 to 20 pounds before summer is setting your protein goal to be higher and increasing your protein intake. Now, if you're tracking your food, you obviously need to set a protein goal, right? And what I would recommend setting it as is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, current body weight, for optimal results. Or if you are on the heavier end and you're looking for a bigger weight loss goal, setting it as 1 gram of protein per goal pound of weight, right? So if you currently weigh 250 pounds, right, and you have a bigger weight loss goal, setting that as, you're not going to set your protein goal to 250 grams of protein, right? You're probably going to be more likely to set that to like 150, 160, 170 grams of protein, because that's like, the eventual goal that you want to get to. This is going to help you burn more calories through thermic effective food, right? So thermic effective food is how many calories our body burns while digesting our food. And our body does burn slightly more calories while digesting protein versus fats and carbs. It's also going to keep you fuller for longer because it is our satiating macronutrient, which means there's going to be less likelihood of you overeating and then pushing yourself out of that deficit. Now, in terms of the breakdown of protein, right, we want to aim for 30 to 35 grams of protein per meal, because this is going to assist in balancing your blood sugar levels and also optimal micronutrient absorption. Your blood sugar and insulin function has a crucial role in multiple functions in our body, and that is going to be making sure that our energy is stable and that you are avoiding energy crashes throughout the day, making sure that you're avoiding cravings like those late night sweet cravings. We do not want those, and your ability to lose fat successfully. When you're in a deficit, your body is naturally under more stress, right? Which means that you will have elevated cortisol levels, and when our cortisol levels are elevated, that means that we will be producing more insulin. And if you're not aware, insulin is a hormone that we have in our body that is used to pull glucose into the bloodstream so that we can use that glucose for energy. And when it is not working properly and it is made in excess, it can make it extremely hard to lose fat. So in a deficit, when our stress levels are higher physiologically on our body, this means that there is a more likelihood of our body becoming more resistant to insulin. So while it is important to support insulin levels in our body at all times, it is even more important to support this in a deficit. And you can do this by making sure that you're eating enough protein and enough throughout the day in increments with each meal to support blood sugar regulation. Also, I mentioned before the absorption of protein, right? So ideally, we would like to absorb protein in moderate amounts so that it's never so much for your body to have to break down at once, right? So if let's just say your protein goal is, 120 grams for the day, but you're eating a 70-gram of protein meal, that's going to be really hard for the body to break down and absorb at one time, right? We want to be able to divide that out through the day in more equal increments so that it is easier on your digestive tract. Now, when we are talking about protein, right, we want to make sure that we're consuming high quality protein. We want to make sure we're eating lots of whole food proteins and staying away from the more processed things like protein powders, protein bars, protein pancakes, protein cookies, right? You get the picture. So getting protein from real whole food sources, the majority of the time will reduce the negative impact on the gut and general inflammation in the body, and will also lead to more benefit from a health standpoint, right? A lot of the protein sources that we eat that are real food sources have a lot of other bioavailable micronutrients in them that are going to support our general health and our well-being. Also, if we have a happy gut, we have lower inflammation, you're going to be less likely to experience symptoms like bloating, digestive issues, right? Gassiness, brain fog, all that kind of stuff. We want to be able to digest our meals properly. So by choosing good quality protein sources, this is going to aid that process. Another thing that I just want to touch on is limiting these super processed meats, right? So oftentimes when we think of protein and we're like, okay, we're not supposed to be eating all these protein powders, like let me just get a super easy protein source from deli meats or like a rotisserie chicken, right? And while these are more of a whole food source than like a protein powder or a protein bar, these sources of meat typically have been injected with a lot of antibiotics, hormones. They have preservatives in them, right? Chemicals like nitrate, sodium nitrate. And these can be really harmful for our body, right? So you want to make sure that you're minimizing your intake of these as well. And if you are consuming some of these, do your best to pick quality sources that are like free from hormones, antibiotics, nitrates, and other preservatives. Honestly, like we really want to try to limit our processed food intake as a whole, right, to support our health, our well-being. When our body is functioning at its optimal peak performance, this is when fat loss is going to be so much more easy for you because you don't have all of these other stressors on your body, right? So really try to aim for that 80-20 split of 80% whole foods, 20%, soul foods, fun foods, packaged processed foods throughout your days to weeks. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is eating in regular intervals through the day. And this is a little bit of a piggyback off our last topic, right? We were talking a little bit about having 30 to 35 grams of protein 3 times a day with each meal, right? Filling in the rest with snacks. And like that, it's going to lead to, eating in regular intervals because you're eating 3 full meals with snacks in between. And while eating balanced meals in more consistent windows is not going to like magically make you have a boosted metabolism or burn more calories, it is going to help regulate your hunger cues and your hunger hormones to keep you in a more consistent schedule, right? It's going to ensure that your body's receiving the fuel that it needs throughout the day, which will decrease the chances of you having this impulse of like binge eating or all of these cravings at the end of the day. I don't know if you've ever had a day where like maybe you're out running errands or you're at work and you're super busy and you're just like so distracted and focused on what you're doing that you like completely skip your meals all day. And then you come home from work at the end of the day and you sit on the couch and you're like, oh my God, I am like the hangriest hippo to ever exist. I'm going to go demolish the kitchen and like no foods are off limits. And you're literally ready to eat like everything and anything that's available to you. This happens because our body hasn't gotten a sufficient enough fuel throughout the day. And then now your brain is sending signals to your body to tell it that it needs more energy, right? And it comes in the form of cravings and fast digesting sugar, essentially, right? It wants energy and it wants it now. So that is what happens when we underfuel our body throughout the day. So when you're in a deficit, right, it's even more important to make sure that you're doing this because you're already eating less food as a whole. So the next thing I would do on the things I would start today to lose 15 to 20 pounds by summer would be increasing my daily movement through increasing my step count. So this is especially important for those of you who are super sedentary on a day-to-day basis. Like if you're already getting like maybe 5 to 6K steps or lower, this is going to be a big impacting factor for you for success. If you are somebody who already maintains a super high step count, this isn't going to be as effective for you when it comes to seeing fat loss results, right? If you're already hitting 10, 12 plus K steps, some people are getting like 15K steps a day on a regular basis, like bringing it up that extra little bit, it's not going to have as much of an impact as it will for somebody who's getting 3K steps per day and now they're getting 10, right? So this is just something to remember when you're listening to this. But when we're looking at our daily caloric burn, right, our total energy expenditure is broken down into 4 categories. So first, we're going to talk about our BMR. This is our basal metabolic rate, and this makes up the biggest amount of calorie burn in our body. This is anywhere from 60 to 75% of our calorie burn, right? So it's a hefty chunk. And this is how many calories your body burns like at complete rest, like zero movement factored in. And this is the food or the fuel, the calories, the energy that your body needs to complete survival mechanisms, like basic bodily functions, like pumping blood through your body, regulating your body temperature, breathing, like these type of things that you need for survival. And the amount that you individually need is going to be based on your gender. It's going to be based on your age, your weight, your height, and how much muscle mass versus how much fat you have on your body, which is probably why you have heard that if you want to boost your metabolism, that you need to build more muscle mass, right? Because muscle is more metabolically active than fat, which means that you're going to be burning more calories at rest when you have more muscle mass on your frame. And thus it's going to increase your BMR. Next, we have our NEAT, N-E-A-T, and this stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I had to think about that one for a second. And what this means is this just is essentially how many calories your body burns while you are not doing specific exercise, like intentional exercise, right? So this is not like you going for a run. This is not you going to the gym. This is like, think standing up and like walking to the kitchen to go get a drink or lifting that drink, right? That water bottle to your lips. Like the energy that is expended on all of these little movements that we do throughout the day, that is not like exercise or workout focused. And this is where our daily step count falls in, right? And this is going to make up 15 to 30% of our daily calorie burn or energy burn that we're going to have, and why increasing your steps can have such a big impact, especially for those who aren't moving very much right now. And then the rest of our calorie burn is going to be made up from your thermic effect of food. So I mentioned that earlier with protein burning more calories, like digesting protein burning more calories than fat or carbs. And that makes up 10%, up to 10% of our daily caloric burn. And then we're also going to have our EAT, which is exercise activity thermogenesis, and that makes up 5 to 10% of our calorie burn per day, right? And that is like our intentional workout. That is like our hour workout at the gym, lifting weights, doing your run, whatever it is. So you can see why, when people all of a sudden want to lose weight and they put such a heavy emphasis on their workout versus, their daily movement, their nutrition, and all of these other like sleep, stress, and all these other habits, like why it is so disproportionated because like that really only makes up 5 to 10% of your calorie burn. So like really, really stressing on changing your workout over implementing more general movement in your life like doesn't really make much sense if you're not moving very much right now, right? Now, in terms of what you should be doing to increase your step count, right? It's one thing to say to increase your step count. It's another thing to be like, how do I increase my step count? So if you do track steps, like say you have an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, a Garmin watch, I have a Garmin watch. What you can do is start by adding 1,000 or 2,000 steps to like your current baseline average and stick there for, a couple weeks until that feels doable, and then increase again, and then keep doing that until you feel like you're at an amount that is challenging but doable. If you do not currently track your steps, you can just start by adding anywhere from a 15 to a 30-minute walk to your daily routine, right? And just start adding that on. And over time, when that becomes easy, you can start by building on that, either the length or adding in more than one walk. And I can hear the protests right now in my ear being like, Sam, it's the middle of winter. Like, how do you expect me to go for a 30-minute walk? I have to like put on my snowsuit and get outside. And the easiest way to do this is to tack on just a low impact treadmill walk after your workouts when you're going to the gym. And on non-workout days, just really make an effort of try to get up and walk around more, whether it's at the office, at home, or whatever it might be. You can even break it down into chunks, right? Like, let's just say you're going to start by adding 20 minutes of walking into your normal routine. You can set a timer, right, on your phone, and just get up and like go for a walk around your office building for 5 minutes. And do that 4 times per day, right? That's an easy way to kind of track your progress and make sure that you're adding more steps in without needing to go outside. Another option is like investing in a walking pad. Like, honestly, they are life-changing. And even if you don't work at home, like I think most people think of walking pads and they're like, well, the vision I have is like somebody who's working at home at a standing desk, like walking on their walking pad. And it doesn't have to be like that, right? Like, you can literally just get a walking pad to put it in your living room, like wheel it out and put it in your living room at night for 30 to 60 minutes or whatever, and walk on the walking pad while you're watching your favorite TV show, listening to an audiobook, listening to a podcast, right? It's a really easy way to get more steps at home without having to stress yourself out about going outside into the cold, right? Especially if you live in Canada or the northern US, like the winter period, the time where it's like not friendly to walk outside, is pretty long. So I would say that, getting a walking pad really is a worth it investment. And these days you can get them for like $200, even less than that sometimes when Amazon has sales. And the last topic kind of leads into this one, because I know I was just talking about your NEAT, so your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, right? Your steps and your movement that's not intentional exercise, technically burning more calories than your intentional exercise, right? And like putting an emphasis on getting more steps and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't bother working out, right? That doesn't mean like stop going to the gym and just walk more, especially if you're not currently strength training, right? Adding in strength training for somebody who's not currently strength training is going to make a huge difference. Or for people who are currently strength training, optimizing the strength training that you're doing. As we touched on earlier, building muscle mass contributes to increasing your BMR, aka boosting your metabolism through the roof, and is a huge component in not only just weight loss, right? The losing the 15 to 20 pounds, it's a huge factor in how your body shape looks and how toned and defined you are. And I know that none of you want to be skinny fat. You want that nice, lean, toned, defined figure, right? Curves in all the right places, and you are going to get that through strength training. Now, I mentioned before, right? If you're not weight training, get your butt in the gym. That's a pretty simple, next step. For those of you that are weight training, improving your workout efficiency through utilizing progressive overload, implementing proper tempo and form, and improving your overall mind to muscle connection and engagement can make a huge difference when it comes to getting the results that you want. Going to the gym does not need to take over your life. It does not need to become your personality, right? 2 to 4 workouts, like strength training workouts per week with like 45 to 60 minutes per session, including like a warm up and cool down, is literally all that you need if you are training properly and effectively. So the main takeaway for this part that I want you guys to really, really remember is that Your focus should be on maximum workout quality and following a workout strategy that is designed to get you to your goals and also factors in your well-being, right? Too often I see when people want to lose fat or lose weight, they think they need to add more. They need to add more. They need to add more volume, more frequency, more intensity, right? Like, oh, I'm not seeing results. That means I need to go to the gym more days per week. I need to do more cardio. I need to do more sets. I need to take shorter rests. I need to sweat more, right? And that is not the answer. That just really ends up wreaking havoc on your hormones and your health as a whole. So we want to stick to, like I said, 2 to 4 workouts per a week, strength training, giving your all in those sessions, really focusing on training effectively and increasing your overall step count from a movement standpoint. From a nutrition standpoint, we want to focus on eating whole foods, getting enough protein, splitting that protein up into each meal per day, making sure that we're balancing our blood sugars through balanced meals and managing our insulin and eating in a deficit, but not a deficit that's so low that it is going to cause a stress response and cause your inflammation to flare up and stop you from losing weight. Now we're going to move into the last 2, and these are more lifestyle focused, right? So the first one, and honestly, this one is like, I mean, they're all, like I said, they're all king. They're all king, or I guess they're all queen, I should say. But this one is so simple, right? It's going to be like a duh, Sam kind of reaction, but we need to optimize sleep. Sleep is especially, I mean, it's really, really important in any phase. It's really important if you're trying to build muscle and you're in a build phase because you need sleep to repair and grow muscle, but you also need sleep to recover in a deficit when your body's already under so much stress, right? The physiological stress of being in the fat loss phase and any of the psychological stress that you have going on in your life, your body recovers while you're sleeping, right? So prioritizing a minimum of 7, however we love a good 8 to 9 hours per a night. This is going to have so many benefits, including but not limited to supporting your metabolism, lowering your stress, improving your recovery, and aiding in muscle repair. So if you're trying to maintain as much muscle mass as possible so you can be sculpted and shaped and look fabulous, you want to be sleeping, right? Reducing cravings, stabilizing mood and energy, stabilizing blood sugar, regulating appetite, all of these things count on sleep to function properly. So I could go on all day about sleep. I might even do like a separate episode on sleep by itself because like I said, I'm like could preach from my soapbox for hours, but proper sleep is going to be so, so important. And while we're talking about sleep, it's not just about the duration, right? It's about the specifics and the nuances around sleep. Obviously, getting 7 to 9 hours is like a big key kind of check that we need on the box. But also we can't overlook the positives from having a regulated sleep and wake cycle, right? This is going to be your circadian rhythm. If you've ever heard people talking about circadian rhythm, that's what that is, right? The times that you wake and go to sleep each day, the cycle of hormones that flow with that. And your body essentially operates on an internal clock, right? That's what your circadian rhythm is. And it impacts most of the hormonal processes in our body. When you have an optimally set circadian rhythm, your body naturally knows what time it's supposed to wake up every day from a peak of cortisol, right? It signals to your body like your cortisol peaks and it signals like, okay, it's time to wake up. Usually this aligns or, in historical times when we're talking about like the origin of humans, that was with the rising of the sun, right? And then as you go through your day and you expend energy and you do things right, naturally your melatonin rises in the afternoon, evening, right? And as your melatonin comes up, your body signals to you, okay, it's time to wind down, it's time to relax, it's time to get ready for bed. It also uses your hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin, to signal when your body needs to prepare and is hungry to eat. So it releases ghrelin saying like, okay, I'm hungry. It's time to eat, right? Typically we eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner at these times to support fueling our body. So it's going to let you know that it's hungry by the release of ghrelin. And then it's going to release leptin after that to let you know that you're full, you're satiated, and so that you don't continue eating and overeat. Your circadian rhythm also has a direct relation to your insulin sensitivity, your thyroid hormone release, which really regulates your metabolism, as well as poor sleep can negatively impact the production of testosterone and growth hormone, which are essential for building muscle, losing fat, and overall recovery. So as you can see, your circadian rhythm is really important for a lot of what goes on into our body. So this is why we want to optimize it, right? So yes, we want to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but we also want to try to regulate our sleep and wake cycles by going to sleep and waking up at least similar times, if not not the same times each day. And I know in modern day society, this can be really hard, especially with like the weekends, going out and doing things, or maybe you're a shift worker, right? But this is something to consider and to look into, especially if you're somebody who does have like, more of a stable lifestyle and regular working hours and stuff like that. And then the last thing that we're going to touch on when it comes to sleep is quality, right? So we talked about duration, we talked about sleep and wake cycle. So now we're going to talk about maximizing your sleep quality and like limiting uninterrupted sleep, right? So we can sleep for 7 to 9 hours, but if you're waking up every 1 to 2 hours, or you're waking up chronically every day at 3 to 4 p.m., right, to go to the bathroom, like this is not ideal. So what we can do to help limit this, and really kind of like make sure that we're actually getting a full night's sleep uninterrupted, is making sure that we are limiting our blue light exposure before bed, right? So if you can, like get off your phone, computer, TV, all of that stuff at least an hour before bed. If you can't, if there's some reason why you absolutely need to be exposed to blue light, right? Wear blue light blocking glasses and use like filters on your devices that are more like orange, red light exposure so that it doesn't stimulate your brain in the way that blue light does. Also, if you find that you're somebody who's like up late scrolling TikTok, doom scrolling, right? That's got to go. Replacing those habits, those dopamine exposing habits that are going to be, kind of these addicting behaviors and that you find really hard to get rid of before bed. Like we need to get rid of that and replace that with like calming, relaxing habits or practices. And then also we want to have, like I just said, a wind down bedtime routine, right? So like your body really likes routines and it likes structure and it likes like repetitiveness, right? It likes knowing what to expect. So by setting a routine, like every night at, say you go to bed at 10 o'clock, at 8:30, I'm going to make a tea, then I'm going to go do my skincare routine, then I'm going to go read a book for 30 minutes. Like if you do that every day, that will become calming in your brain, which is going to then calm your body because you know that this is the time to wind down, right? You're like mentally conditioning yourself and then you're going to have a physical response that follows. And we want to try to stop eating 1 to 2 hours before bed, right? Obviously, if you go and eat like, especially like a super carb dense meal right before bed, like I'm not going to tell you eating before bed makes you fat because like that's not the case, right? It's more from like a digestive practice. Like if you go and eat a bunch of sugar before bed, like that's going to, create an energy crash because you're going to have a blood sugar spike, right? Also, like it's commonly been linked that vivid dreams can be linked to like eating close before bed. You're also probably going to wake up more full and less hungry first thing in the morning and feel more sluggish and have slower digestion if you're eating before bed and then that food is sitting in your stomach all night, right? So we do want to try to have like 1 to 2 hours of not eating before you go to sleep. Alongside that, we do want to stop drinking a lot of water 1 to 2 hours before going to sleep, right? So like say I have this water bottle, just taking small little sips of this, especially like 60 to 90 minutes before going to sleep, because the last thing you want to do is wake up 3 times throughout the night to go pee, right? Drinking water and being hydrated is really important for overall health, but you don't want to do it at the expense of your sleep. So really trying to front load your water in the first half of the day, the first, even 2/3 of the day can be really helpful. And then just taking more smaller sips like after dinner to remain hydrated is going to help have better sleep. And then the last thing I will say is keeping the room dark and a reasonably cool temperature will also allow for more temperate sleeping and provide less wake ups from discomfort. Sorry, I lied. The last thing I'll say is that if there's a lot of noise exposure, so if you have a boyfriend who snores, a husband who snores, or there's, people that are loud, your neighbors, whatever, wearing earplugs is also a game changer. Okay, we're on to the 6th tip of these 6 things that I would do starting tomorrow to lose 15 to 20 pounds before summer. And this is stress management. I could talk all day about stress management. Stress management is such a hard topic to discuss with people because I feel like these days it's something that has kind of like gotten a little bit out of control. We're talking about like all like the woo-woo stuff. It can also become like really overcomplicated, and I don't want you to envision in your head right now that I'm going to talk about, some ridiculous 12-step morning routine or like sitting cross-legged with your eyes closed and like doing all these kind of meditations. Like that's not where we're going with this, right? I want to keep this simple for you guys. And, if either of those things do work for you, I'm not knocking it, right? I'm just saying that I know that that's not realistic for most people. And I think that unfortunately we live in this influencer era where people kind of portray this lifestyle of this like perfect, put together, like healthy lifestyle. This is like the goal. And while I can like appreciate some inspo, some motivation, right, of this like dream life, that's not how most of us live our lives, right? Waking up and having like a 3 hour morning routine before you like go to your morning Pilates class and then go for coffee, like that's just not it, right? As much as some of us might like that. So I have 2 points to make here, because like I said, I could literally go on all day talking about stress, and maybe I'll do also another episode on stress. I know I did one before, kind of talking about how stress is going to like kill your results basically, because it does. But for today, we're only going to talk about 2 things. And point number 1 is going to be that you are never going to be fully able to escape stress. Like it's just like physically impossible, right? No matter what season of life you're in, no matter how much money you have, how fit you are, how old you are, like no matter what that stuff is, stress is never going to completely go away. We have work, relationships, finances, health, like family stuff, right? I guess that's relationships. So many things that can lead to stress in our life, right? So instead of thinking like, oh, to reduce my stress in my life, I need to eliminate it. I need to like get rid of stress. I want us to shift our perspective on how to react to stress and like what we're going to do when that stress arises and how to respond to it, right? While I will preface this by saying like, yes, there are things in our life that are stressful that we can remove, right? Like the answer for some things is remove it, whether it is a really toxic relationship, or maybe it is, a job that is just not treating you fairly and like you want to find another job. Like those are things that you do have the control to substitute or eliminate from your life, right? But a lot of these things, like, it's not going to be an overnight solution, or it's not going to be an overnight elimination, or it's going to be something that, you can't really get rid of. You can only manage. Like you can't get rid of your family. You can only manage family stress, right? So like I said, we're going to focus on how to shift our perspective on how to react to our stress. So I want you to start by taking a step back and assessing the issue for what it is with more of an objective perspective, right? If you look at the issue, do you really need to make it this like huge ordeal that needs to be fixated on and like let it consume your brain, making you super anxious, working yourself up, and kind of being all consuming of your emotions? Or is that something that like you're kind of doing because you're spiraling, right? And taking an approach of channeling your energy into controlling the controllables, right? So when you have a situation that blows up and you're really stressed about it, like I said, instead of letting it like take over, take an objective look at it and be like, okay, what in this situation or what else in my life right now that could be adding to this to make my life more stressful can I control that's going to reduce my overall stress load? So maybe just as an example, right? Maybe you have a really, really stressful situation at work with your boss and there's like literally nothing you can do about it. Like aside from just talking to your boss, like there's nothing else that you can do about it. Well, what you can do is bring down your stress in other areas of your life, right? You can make sure that you're getting ahead on your nutrition preparation, your meal prep, and your cooking for the week. So that way you don't even need to think about your prepping and your cooking. And that's going to be on track for you. Maybe you're going to like push one of your workouts to the weekend because part of this work situation is like you needing to stay late at work every night this week, and you're upset and you're mad because now you need to miss your best friend's birthday party, and you can't go to the gym and all of these things, right? And that's why you're so stressed out. So, like maneuvering your schedule to support your situation so that there's less stress load there, right? Focusing on what you can control versus letting the stress consume you and then everything else spirals, right? When we are consumed by stress, that is when everything like shit hits the fan and everything goes on the back burner, right? So instead of letting that happen, putting the stress on the back burner temporarily so that you can get everything else in a line so your life isn't going to a chaotic gong show and adding to that stress. And then another thing, the next layer to this is taking a solution-based approach. Oftentimes when stress happens in our life, we kind of just like want to sit and wallow in our emotions. And while we do need to like having a healthy relationship with yourself and your emotions is processing your emotions, right? We don't want to suppress them, push them under the rug, anything like that. The healthy approach is processing the emotions, letting yourself feel the feels for a realistic period of time. Get mad, punch a pillow, do whatever you want to do. But then move past it and look for a solution. Take a solution-based approach. So instead of like complaining and like looking, for kind of just an outlet to complain and look for sympathy and kind of, play the victim role, accept that the situation is what it is, and like, what can I do to make this situation better for myself? Sometimes the answer is going to be nothing, unfortunately. Sometimes there is a situation where you just can't fix it yourself. But that's when, like I said earlier, you're going to be able to take the stress off of your load from other areas of your life. Or maybe it's asking your partner for help that week because the stress load is harder and you need some help with the kids. Or maybe that's asking your mom to babysit because, like there are solutions out there, but often we get so blinded by the stress that we just like become giant consumed stress balls and we don't look on how to lighten that load in other areas, right? And I know that sounds impossible. And sometimes it is hard to take yourself out of like kind of that first person view. But with practice, it can become a lot easier. And the second point is taking a proactive approach to stress, right? So oftentimes like we're in this scenario where we look at stress management as reactive. It's like once stress arises, okay, well now what am I going to do to manage that stress? When in reality, what we should be doing is continuously supporting our body's stress response, right? So what we want to do is try to help support our body's stress mechanism by introducing regular practices of doing things that help support your serotonin levels and regulating your nervous system. And I just want to throw in a little disclaimer here because two of the things that I see women relay back to so often when we're talking about self-care and stress management is like beauty-based self-care and stress management, or like social events. And while both of these things are important to incorporate in your life and I advocate for, they aren't really doing anything for the regulation of your nervous system, and the underlying support of your stress response. There are more instant gratification systems and they allow you to feel good temporarily, almost like a distraction from the stress until the stress sets back in, right? So similarly to kind of like numbing out and watching TV for a couple hours or like scrolling social media, it's like a dissociation from the moment until like reality sets back in, right? And what it is basically just a quick dopamine hit. And dopamine is our neurotransmitter associated with like our pleasure and oftentimes associated with addiction, right? So getting back to kind of like what I recommend, usually I try to pick 2 activities per week, one that focuses on a hobby or activity that genuinely makes me feel happy and boosts my serotonin production. And serotonin is responsible for regulating your mood, your happiness, and your emotional balance. And it's also a precursor to melatonin, which is also going to help us get better sleep, right? So basically, I'll focus on filling up my cup in a regenerative way. So like I was saying before, right? Like with doing things like watching TV, scrolling or scrolling TikTok, or like going to a social event, like the first category there is more numbing out and dissociating. And then a social event is more of like actually expending your social battery. The odd, rare occasion you might have a social interaction with somebody who like you're really energetically aligned with and will actually recharge you. But more often than not, and I encourage you to actually do this and check in with yourself and see how you feel after. When you go out to like a girls' night, a social event, a party, you come home feeling socially exhausted, right? And that didn't actually fill you up. It drained you more. So even though you had fun, I'm not arguing that you didn't have fun and like you had a good time and you enjoyed the atmosphere, it was actually an energy taker, not an energy giver. So coming back to, this activity, we want to do something that's going to be restorative, right? It's going to be regenerative for you and fill up your cup in a good way. So for me, usually this is going for a nature walk, right? Being in the energy of like animals and nature is usually really uplifting for me and calming and relaxing, and also makes me feel like a happy mood, especially like in, depending on what time of year it is, where you live. Being in the sunshine, like getting vitamin D and being in the sun is also a really great way to do this. So whether that's going for like a nature walk, a walk outside in the sun, or just like spending some time sitting outside, or also for me doing something creative like, painting, a digital design, something like that, is also a really great outlet for me to feel relaxed and I'm channeling my energy in a productive way, but it like fills me up and makes me feel great opposed to drains me. And then the second activity would be something restorative, right? That's really focusing on your nervous system and really think about it in your brain. Like when you're trying to see like what qualifies for this is like, is it allowing you to slow down and like be present, right? A lot of times nervous system regulating activities are related to us like slowing our breath down, right? Which is going to bring us to be more present, less anxiety, and just like kind of focus in on the moment. So this is going to be something like a guided stretching video, a restorative yoga session. Maybe you like meditation, maybe you like breath work, but like I said, just something that's going to really slow you down. Even just like sitting in a room, listening to calming music, having a candle burning, right? Like something like that can be great for your nervous system. I also really like to do a daily gratitude practice, right? Listing 3 to 5 things I'm grateful for, or even like a guided visualization meditation once a week. These are all things that I love to do. But like I said, like I don't want to make it too like spiritual woo-woo. Like everybody is different and you got to find what works for you. But it is going to be really, really important, right? Like I said, to foundationally support your nervous system proactively, because especially in a deficit. So to conclude the chapter on stress management, I just want to highlight that on top of the psychological and emotional stress in your life, which is what a lot of this section has been about, when you're in a fat loss phase, you're also placing your body under more physiological stress, right? Because it's not meeting its energy needs. You're eating less than you're burning. So every day you're putting your body under stress because it's not recouping what it's been burning, right? So if you're not taking care of your body's stress response, especially over a more prolonged period of time, it's in a fight or flight state, and it's going to be exceptionally hard to see the results you want to achieve. So you want to really make sure that you are supporting those stress levels. Now, I know that was a lot of information in this episode, so I've created a little cheat sheet guide you can download in the summary of the episode. There's a link there to refer back to if you kind of like want a refresher on any of this. And if you have any questions, or you're looking for more insight in any of these categories, please feel free to reach out to me. Like my DMs are always open. I love to chat with you guys and help you guys. I also offer a free nutrition audit. So if you want some insight on like how many calories you're currently eating, if that's good to start a deficit, if it's not, please feel free to also let me know if you want to do that, and I can send you the link for that. And I'm also taking on a couple more clients for the spring summer season. So if you are looking for professional guidance through, really achieving like your goal body and being able to maintain it long term, like without that bounce back, apply with the link in our summary here as well. And I'll get back to you with more information on that as well. So if you found this podcast helpful, guys, I would really love for you to share it with others who you think would benefit from it. Honestly, the purpose of this podcast is to help educate women who have been, in a situation like myself in the past where we've grown up and being given misinformation surrounding weight loss, body recomposition, health, right? Hormones, all of these topics. And I'm just here to spread information and to help you guys be able to achieve the results that you want and in a way that doesn't negatively impact your health. So I would love to see more people be exposed to these episodes because there is so much amazing information packed into them. So if you could share it with a friend, that would be amazing. And that's all that I ask of you guys. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will catch you in the next one.